The final full day of two of the MLB All-Star break. Of course, we had the All-Star game on Tuesday, the Home Run Derby on Monday. 4 full days off from regular season action, but 2 days without any form of baseball. A full Friday slate resumes the season tomorrow. It's not exactly the second half, but we'll call it that for all intensive purposes. Every team around MLB has played at least 95 games of the 162. Here we will update the playoff picture around the bigs and what you need to know. Current American League playoff picture in the extended and expanded postseason. Here is 1 through 6. The Guardians, the best record overall in the AL. They are, of course, atop the American League Central. They have a half-game advantage over the O's, who have only a 1-game lead in the AL East. The Mariners holding on to a 1-game lead as well in the American League West, which means the 3 wildcard teams, the New York Yankees, the Minnesota Twins, and the Boston Red Sox in what is expected to be a very competitive race for those 3 spots around the AL.
Yes, it is. And also, it should be not a surprise to many people, which might be when you start talking about the Orioles and the Yankees as the best 2 teams in the American League, and then say, okay, well, wait a second. These standings say the Guardians have the best record overall in the American League. They played great baseball, but understand this, from a competitive standpoint, yes, they're a good team here. But similar to what we see so many times, not necessarily in the NFL, but more in the NBA, it's not about the regular season. And sometimes that's a little bit unfair because it wasn't as if the Guardians have played 9 games. Like, hey, they're 6-3. They're a good ball club. They played, as Ben said, over 90 games. And that's a key indicator. But also, when you get to the playoffs, how do these rosters match up against each other? And the reason I brought up the NBA is just in the recent past, like remember when the Nets were not even going to make the playoffs, but like still factored in as the best overall team odds-wise or second overall team odds-wise in the Eastern Conference if they did make the playoffs? That's kind of wacky here. And that's sort of what we're looking at with the Guardians, a very good baseball team. But from my perspective, I don't know if they'll be able to tangle with yet the Orioles or the Yankees, depending on what changes are made to all 3 of those ball clubs before they actually hit the postseason. So when I look at those standings here, there's a lot of respect for the Guardians in the regular season, and agreed, you are what your record says you are. I just don't know if that record, Ben, is going to translate once we get into the playoffs. But kudos to them leading the pack here coming out of the All-Star break.
Yeah, absolutely so. And those odds you see to your right, the division prices, the Yankees actually a better number to win the American League East than Baltimore, who right now sits in first by a full game. It could have been a lot more than that. The O's struggling in their final week before the All-Star break, swept at home by the Cubs, lost 2 of 3 in the weekend set against the New York Yankees, unable to take advantage of some bad baseball out of the Bronx Bombers, who entered the series against the O's having lost 17 of their last 23 games, but did win 2 of those final 3 to cut it to just a 1-game lead in the American League East. Now let's go to the wild card. There are 5 teams now in the wild card chase, including the 3 that occupy those 3 AL wild card spots that are at least 4 games above 500 or better. When we look at the National League in just a moment, you will see the difference there in what we expect to be a competitive wild card race in both leagues. The Yankees sit atop. They have a 3-game lead over Minnesota, who has a half-game lead over the Red Sox. Boston, 2 games in front of KC, 3.5 games in front of the Astros. We'll make a point on Houston's playoff price and that postseason number in just a moment. But the 3 teams that, if the season ended today at the All-Star break, of course it does not, that would be in the wild card. That would be the Yankees, the Twins, and the Red Sox.
Yeah, it's incredible. The Red Sox, again, if the season ended today, would be in the playoffs, something that would be unheard of, or at least untalked about, we should say, coming out of spring training. Not a lot of expectations for the Red Sox. It's almost like a show-me year for some of these young players. Then we might add on in the offseason. And they're, quite frankly, I believe they are going to make the playoffs when it's all said and done. But there are, Ben, some really talented teams that are not right now in the playoffs. You take a look at the Kansas City Royals. Say, well, we didn't expect a ton from them coming into the season. No, they're pretty talented here. That pitching staff is very good. The bullpen is okay. And that 1-9's got superstar players like Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez. The Pasquatches in there. There's a lot of fun players. We'll see how they can hold up their end of the bargain in the second half. But then you're getting into those teams that usually are perennial playoff teams, right? The Houston Astros, 3.5 games back. The Tampa Bay Rays, 5.5 games back. Now, the Tigers, 47-50. I don't think we anticipated too much coming out of spring training, having a decent season, hovering around that 500 mark and trying to stay around getting into the wild card. But right behind them are those Texas Rangers, 46-50. Yeah. They have way more pedigree than a lot of teams that we just stated. They won the World Series last year and are now getting healthy. I think that's one of those teams we can watch and have fun with. But it's interesting to see if it ended today, Yankees, Twins, Red Sox, but a lot of talent just outside of those 3 wild card spots. We'll see how they play the rest of the way to try to play themselves into a playoff position.
Boston is 53-42, 11 games above 500. It is the same exact record as the Atlanta Braves, and the Braves have a substantial lead for that top spot in the National League wild card race. So the team that is in the last wild card spot in the AL has the same exact record and is the same amount of games above 500 as the team in the top spot comfortably in the National League. What does that mean? A lot of good quality ball clubs in the race for the postseason in the AL. Because, Donnie, for a good majority of the first 2.5 months or so of this Major League Baseball campaign, what was one of the stories around the entirety of the league? Mediocre ball. A couple of teams above 500, 4 or 5 in each league, with those teams sitting atop the division doing really well, but not really getting pushed. It seems as though, as we have reached the All-Star break, we are starting to find better baseball across the league. You'll see there, by the way, in the playoff prices for the wild card chase that we have showed you, the Yankees number is off the board, expected to be a playoff team and the divisional favorites to win the American League East despite trailing by a game. The Twins juiced at a minus 500 price, but then you'll see both the Red Sox and the Astros also in minus money. The Stros have a better price to be an American League playoff team than even Boston, and Houston trails the Red Sox by 3.5 games. Why is that? Because of the race in the American League West as well. The Astros only a game behind the Seattle Mariners. The M's entered the All-Star break, losers of 9 of their last 14. Houston has won 17 of its last 23 games to get back into playoff contention and 4 games above 500.
And enjoy that parity while you can right now. There's 3 sections of the Major League Baseball season that I always like to break up. It's the opening, which would be, let's just say, the month of April. Everybody thinks they can make the playoffs. Everybody thinks they can be a contender. Numbers don't really matter. The Pittsburgh Pirates are in first place. They're an amazing baseball team. We see this on a year-to-year basis with some teams we didn't expect to be there. Then you have the middle of the season where things start to settle in. Then there's post-trade deadline, which we're coming up on in about 2 weeks at this point. And the reason I say parity is most teams are still trying to win baseball games. The minute you have the trade deadline and your team decides to go in for the playoffs or out for the playoffs, you also start to see those taxes where if a price point for an underdog was plus 150, they're now going to be plus 175, plus 185 because it's apparent. Their goal is to not win baseball games. It's to see where players fit in the future of their team for the next couple years here. Get ready for that to happen. So when you take a look at the White Sox, the Athletics, the Angels, and also, quite frankly, the Toronto Blue Jays, we're just talking American League right now, if they decide to sell, that's going to be one to watch because you go from, hey, man, this team was competitive for a while. Why not anymore? You'll know the reason why, because that front office told the manager and his general manager, you know what? This year is gone. We're trading players away. We're not really trying to win. Let's get to evaluation mode, and you can take advantage of that on the opposite side with some of these favorites.
Good time to stack up some wins. The Yankees still the favorites to win the American League pennant at plus 240, over $0.50 in front of the O's. Again, Baltimore has the better record and a lead in the division, but the Yankees the better odds outlook in every single category. Same story in the American League Central and the American League West. The Twins have a better price to win the pennant, but trail the Guardians by 4.5 games in the division. The Astros trail the Mariners by a game, but have a better price to win the American League pennant as well. Of course, the Astros have played in each of the last 7 American League Championship Series. We'll talk about Houston's price a little bit later on in the AL West. But now to the National League we go. Up next. First, the American League postseason picture. Now the NL. The Phillies have the best record in all of MLB, 62-34 at the All-Star break. They sit in that top spot. with a comfortable lead over the LA Dodgers. Of course, these two faced each other at this point last week in Philadelphia, and the Phils swept LA. A 6.5 game advantage for the Titans atop everybody in the National League. The Brewers atop the National League Central, third best mark, 55 and 42 in front of the Braves, who have that top spot in the National League wild card race. The Cardinals there as well, and the New York Mets turning things on since the month of June when they were 9 games below 500 entering, occupy that third and final NL wildcard spot with a game lead over both the D-backs and the Padres. DRS, what do you make of the National League playoff picture at the All-Star break?
I mean, when we talk about parity, I don't really think there's all that much parity here in the National League, because when you take a look at legitimate teams to win the pennant, it probably starts and ends with the Philadelphia Phillies and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, granted, it's not a slight to say that Milwaukee is a solid team. They are, but they don't have a chance. The Atlanta Braves, 53 and 42. They are, but they really don't have a chance. St. Louis Cardinals, Mets, Diamondbacks, come on now. Those teams probably aren't going to challenge at the top. Now, granted, you could have disaster scenarios on teams. The Dodgers can all get injured. The Phillies can all get injured. We understand where we're going with that. But also, as we get to a little bit later in the pick six, players to watch down the stretch, there's one that I'm not going to reveal, but he is on the Atlanta Braves as somebody I need to see more of down the stretch to see if Atlanta can be a true competitor. But if we're just looking at the marketplace, it is quite shocking, though, to see the Philadelphia Phillies. You say, okay, 8.5 game lead in their own division. That probably means the Dodgers are only 2 to 3 games back. The Dodgers 6.5 games back, which is a direct, reflection of what the Phillies did to the Dodgers in that 3-game sweep, really to buffer that. Now, granted, the Phillies didn't have a great series against the Oakland Athletics, and the run differential, which is a plus 110, took a 15-point shot there on that last day as they got crushed by 15 runs against, of all teams, the Athletics. But I do think the Phillies right now, looking at their pitching staff, it's healthy. Zach Wheeler, Ranger Suarez got an extra break before the All-Star break. Now they'll be able to come back in full form. You take a look at JT Realmuto, one of the best catchers in Major League Baseball. He's set to come back within the week here. Bryce Harper's healthy. Schwarber's healthy. Injuries do happen during the season. Quite frankly, they happen to the Philadelphia Phillies as well, Atlanta Braves. But just a synopsis overall, it looks for me right now, the Philadelphia Phillies right now are the best team in Major League Baseball, and they should be slotted in that position here as that number 1 seed.
Injuries certainly plaguing the LA Dodgers as well. There is little doubt that top to bottom, when fully healthy, the Dodgers have the advantage roster-wise, starting staff-wise around Major League Baseball. Just top to bottom, everything taken into account, but they are not healthy at the moment. Tyler Glass, now we expect to come back pretty quickly after the All-Star break, but on the IL. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, not exactly going to be a quick return from his injured list time. Same with Mookie Betts for the offensive lineup for LA. All that said, you'd have to look at the Phillies and give them the edge at this moment. Now, let's talk about the National League and those division standings and how it plays into the wild card race. We shared in the American League 2 of the 3 divisions, separated by only a game. Baltimore in front of New York in the AL East, Seattle in front of Houston in the AL West. The largest divisional lead in the American League, it's in the Central. The Guardians 4.5 games in front of the Twins, but Minnesota shortening that gap. The shortest gap between the top 2 teams in the National League is the NL Central, where Milwaukee leads St. Louis by 4.5 games. The Dodgers up by 7 games in front of both the D-backs and the Padres, and LA has won the National League West 10 of the last 11 years. Philadelphia, an 8.5 game advantage over the Atlanta Braves, and the Braves have won the division each of the past 6 seasons, but Philly well in front. Minus 600 to win the National League East, minus 3,000 still for the Dodgers to win the NL West, despite losing 8 of their last 11 games entering the All-Star break. So again, that leads us to where we are in the wild card watch. The Braves comfortable with that top spot. They're more than 3.5 games in front of the St. Louis Cardinals, who have the second position. Then things get interesting. The Mets in a wild card spot at this moment, a full game in front of the D-backs, the Padres, and then the Pirates surfacing back to an even 500. And Donnie, we saw around the American League, really where you look at things, 6 teams that have a minus money price to get into the postseason. The Yankees in the wild card spot off the board. The Twins minus 500. Notice there is only one team in the wild card race at this moment with a minus money price, and that's the Braves, well in front for the top spot at minus 4,000. The odds makers pretty much alluding to the idea the race for the wild card spots in the National League, uncertain, up in the air, chaotic, and something to monitor here after the All-Star break comes to a close.
Absolutely. And so many times we equate these to other sports, Ben, particularly with college football, right? It's going to have a much of an impact, profound impact on the regular season, expanding the playoff. More teams, more schools are brought into the equation, which means a better regular season college football schedule than what we had in the past. We're doing the same thing now with Major League Baseball. The advent of that third wild card spot. Take a look at this now. Outside of the Marlins, Rockies, and Nationals, which you could probably wipe off right now, the Cubs, 3.5 games back of that final spot. The Reds, 3. Giants, 3. Pirates, 1.5. Padres and Diamondbacks, 1 game back. The Mets in, Cardinals, and Braves. This is fantastic for baseball. It brings in organizations that might be ultimate sellers at the deadline with maybe 1 wild card or just 2, now saying, you know what? Maybe we won't sell at the deadline. Maybe we'll give our fans something. Maybe we'll add a bat as opposed to sell a bat at this point. So when I take a look at the National League, I do think it's very top-sided with the Dodgers and the Phillies, but that doesn't mean you can't have fun and also more meaningful baseball down the stretch as a handicapper, Ben. Who likes to go in that final 3 weeks of the season going like, all right, this team's way out and this team's way out and nobody's going to play for anything. Go, okay, let me bet the Pirates for the full game and go, hey, by the way, just got word. They're going to try a double-A reliever as their closer up 3-2 just to see how he performs. You don't want to see that with money on the line. You want teams that are in it with a legitimate chance to make the playoffs with a couple weeks left to help your handicap, and you're getting that right here in the National League. I love what I see. Parity is fantastic in the National League to keep our interest late in the season, Ben.
It's a great point. It changes the handicap. It changes the ideas and philosophies for front offices ahead of the trade deadline. But still, in terms of contenders, it does seem to be a 2-team race. The Dodgers and the Phillies. LA still in front by 35 cents, plus 175 in front of the Phils at plus 210. More on the playoff picture at the All-Star break up next. Final day of the Major League Baseball All-Star break before the home stretch of this season kicks off tomorrow with a full slate on a Friday around MLB. Let's go big picture. Let's look at the league as a whole right now. The winning division of a World Series championship and how we might form a wager here. The 2 Eastern divisions lead the way. In the NL East, it's the Phils, the Braves, and the Mets. There would be 3 teams out of that division right now into the NL playoff bracket if the season ended today. Same story in the American League East. The Orioles as the division winner, 1 game in front of the Yankees, but the Red Sox hold on to that 3rd and final American League wildcard spot as well. The National League West has the Dodgers, and that's why the price is plus 290 before we get into a large drop-off at 8-1. The NL winner versus the American League winner juiced at minus 140 in favor of the National League because the 2 best prices to win a World Series crown both hail from the NL. The Dodgers the favorites, the Phillies the 2nd best price.
Yeah, if we're looking at some of those price points, right, because sometimes you do want to take a long shot with a legitimate chance to win. I honestly would say the only one I would not bet, honestly, would be the NL Central. And again, that's the Brewers, that's the Cardinals, and the Pirates, because I want to give a little bit more of a backing of the AL Central, because I do think there's better quality teams in there, meaning the Guardians and the Twins. Either one of those teams make the playoffs. I think there's a decent chance they can win at least 1 round. But again, we're getting back to who do we think are going to win. And it is so simple as to say, like, well, hold on now. Why would the Dodgers be priced as the number 1 overall team in the odds market at the FanDuel Sportsbook to win the World Series, but then their actual division isn't? It's simple mathematics, has been explained. You get 3 cracks at it with the Phillies, Braves, and the Mets if the season ended today. Now, do we think the Mets are going to do damage or the Atlanta Braves for my money right now? I don't think they will. But then again, I think you're getting the best overall team with the Philadelphia Phillies there. Then you flip it over. If we had a better performance in the first half from the Giants and or the D-backs, then you would have the NL West leading the way as the best division here with the best odds to win the World Series. So I do agree with a lot of those, but if I'm just leaving out one, you say, well, Donnie, why wouldn't you leave out the AL West? I'm telling you right now, there's some funny business going on out there, and has nothing to do with the Mariners' chances, because I don't think they're going to withhold either the Astros or the Rangers in the second half of the season. If they do, congratulations, they're playing much better baseball. But there's just something about the Astros showing up in the playoffs, the Rangers showing up in the playoffs, lightning at a bottle, which means they were terrible to start the season, but maybe one of the better teams in baseball over the second half of the season, because how else would they wind up in the playoffs? That's one to keep an eye on at this point, is that division.
Yeah, absolutely. So how could you not? It's been our bit for the first half. Where is the
Yeah.
fork? Is it in the Houston Astros to say that they are done? Is it in the drawer? Is it even still in the house? Or is it at some dump because we threw it away a long time ago? I would lean with the latter. The Astros are back. Whether you like it or not, they are firmly in playoff contention at this moment. And if they get to the dance, if they have a seat at the table, it's hard to bet against them. In whatever iteration Houston has been throughout the cheating scandal and knocking on trash cans, or what we have seen as of late, they have played in the last 7 consecutive ALCSs. Last year, if you bet the AL West to win the World Series, you were feeling good because the American League Championship Series was a divisional duel and an in-state showdown between the Rangers and the Astros. It is interesting, Donnie, when you look at the World Series odds overall. 2 top teams from the National League. Then you go to the 2 top teams out of the AL, and the Braves round out the top 5. Those 5 teams, 8-1 or shorter, before you have over a $10 drop-off to the Guardians and the Twins at 18-1. But 6 of the 9 best prices from the American League. So again, the National League, at least from the odds perspective, seemingly kind of more of a top-heavy league, where the AL has a bunch of quality teams at this moment that could make a run toward the pennant.
Yes, and by the way, if we are looking at those odds on the FanDuel Sportsbook, I'd only make one minor change. I would put the Phillies above the Dodgers and then still have the Yankees, Orioles, and Braves in that exact order. I think that makes the most sense. So I think we're on it, but of course, we're not worried about the regular season, and we already brought up how the NBA typically views its regular season and the odds market at the FanDuel Sportsbook, where it's like, not what have you done for me lately? What do I expect out of you if you're healthy come playoff time? And that's the Dodgers. I'm telling you right now, like we talked about some of those free agent pitchers yesterday, they're going to be on the market, and it's like, the Dodgers are stacked up here. Wait a second. They just got Scooble, and now they're in the hunt for Crochet as well. Like, that's the type of organization the Dodgers are. That's why we're expecting big things. A dominant bullpen, a ridiculous 1 through 9, and if they improve on that injured pitching staff, which you expect some of those guys to come back with 2 more starters or so, watch out for the Dodgers. That's why they're priced where they are.
In the NBA, the regular season just lacks the significance of the postseason. The last few years with the expanded playoff in MLB, it's been pure chaos and looks very different because of how it is structured. Hour 2 comes your way next.